What are you talking about? I don't have any tickets for you. On the day of our long-awaited family trip abroad, I was unexpectedly confronted with these words. Left behind alone at the airport, I tried to suppress my rising anger and pulled out my smartphone. My name is Allison Baker, and I'm 26 years old. I work at a cafe attached to a hotel, where I met Ted, who would later become my husband, a few years ago. Ted comes from a fairly well-known business family, and it seems he took a liking to me for some reason when he stopped by the cafe for work. However, I couldn't straightforwardly accept his affection. The reason was that my mother was a single parent, and she passed away due to illness when I was in middle school, leaving me to be raised by my maternal grandparents. With such a background, I felt I was no match for Ted, an heir to a distinguished family. Although I was genuinely pleased to be favored by him, I didn't think I could accept his feelings. I told Ted about my upbringing, explaining that it was inappropriate for us to be together. But he insisted that family background didn't matter, and persistently pursued me without giving up. Finally, I gave in to how genuine he was and decided to give dating a shot. Ted's a little unsure at times, but he's really nice, and the more I learned about him, the more I felt attracted to him. A year into our relationship, we got married. Naturally, after our wedding, I moved into his family home. I didn't initially mind living with his family right after getting married, but unfortunately, I didn't get along well with my in-laws. Since they were never fond of their son marrying me, they often looked down on me because I was from a single-parent home. Ted works at his father's company and had openly declared me as his girlfriend within the company during our courtship, which might be why his image-conscious parents reluctantly agreed to our marriage. I told my in-laws that my parents divorced when I was 3, but without asking for the reason, they assumed infidelity on my father's part and ridiculed me. No matter how many times I tried to correct them, they wouldn't listen, suggesting that I must have been poor and poorly educated because I was from a single-parent family, and therefore I could only work as a waitress. Although my mom is no longer alive, I love and respect my parents very much. So I asked Ted to tell his parents not to speak ill of my parents in front of me. But he always vaguely nodded and ultimately did nothing. His father, a domineering company president who built his business from scratch, and his mother, who had held significant power at school parent associations for many years, were imposing figures in Ted's life whom he couldn't seem to defy. Ted, not naturally assertive, would retract his own opinions in front of his parents. Thus, for us to live peacefully in that house, it was impossible to go against my in-laws. Their hobby is traveling abroad. Ever since Ted was a child, it has been a tradition to relax and spread their wings during every major holiday. Today, as I faced my first major holiday as part of this family, my mother-in-law was joyously preparing a heap of brochures. After dinner, she spread them on the table, and the family meeting about where to travel this year began. The destinations and hotel names listed in the brochures were all renowned, and I was culturally shocked by the glamorous life of a business family. Now, thinking of myself as a part of this family, I felt a slight confusion mixed with joy. As I curiously looked through the brochures, my mother-in-law suddenly asked if I had a passport. Having no experience traveling abroad, I shook my head, thinking I should get one early to avoid any trouble. Then she laughed loudly, mockingly calling me poor. My face must have turned red, but my father-in-law joined in the laughter, and Ted, unable to stand up to them, merely forced a smile. I began to feel discontent with Ted, who, as always, did not defend me against his parents' words. After numerous family discussions, the destination for this trip was decided to be the Bahamas. The reason was that they were familiar with the place from frequent visits. And a new 5-star hotel, recently a hot topic among celebrities, had just opened. And they wanted to stay there. I had no say in the decision, but I was thrilled. It was like a dream to stay in such a wonderful place on my first trip abroad. However, on the night the destination was decided, Ted, looking serious, approached me in the bedroom. Entering the bedroom, he hesitantly brought up the topic of the trip, suggesting that since the cafe might be busy during the holiday, it would be all right for me not to force myself to take time off. Given Ted's previous actions, I couldn't take this merely as consideration. The discussion about traveling during the holiday had been going on for days. And for him to bring this up now must mean his parents had told him to ask me to decline. Or perhaps he felt sorry for his wife, who would have to be mindful of his parents during the trip. I thought it might be one of these reasons. But I really wanted to stay at the luxury hotel we were booked at. So I assured Ted that taking time off would be fine. Despite his complex expression, he told me that he would be traveling on business with his father until the day before the trip and would head straight to the airport from the business trip location. Ted, being the executive director at his company, often accompanied his father, the president, on business trips. This time, the business trip would also include sightseeing. And my mother-in-law was joining them, meaning I would likely go to the airport alone. It was my first time using an airport, but in today's internet-savvy world, I figured I could manage most things by researching online. Even alone, getting into the airport and meeting up with Ted and the others shouldn't be a problem. In fact, I thought it would be more comfortable than going to the airport alone with my mother-in-law, so I nodded to Ted's words. Make a list of what you want for souvenirs. On the eagerly awaited day of the family trip, I meticulously prepared and left the house with plenty of time. As it was my first trip abroad, I had received various lectures from my mother-in-law beforehand. Some information differed from what I had researched, but I didn't want to cause a fuss. So I prepared everything as she instructed. This included a credit card because, thinking about safety, she told me that travelers should not carry cash abroad. So I brought just one personal credit card for payments. Excitedly transferring between trains and buses, I arrived at the international airport earlier than planned. As people around me strode confidently, I started to feel a bit nervous. After consulting the internet and looking at signs, I managed to reach Terminal 1, the designated meeting point, and spotted Ted and his parents near the boarding gate. Relieved, I hurried over, but my mother-in-law's indifferent attitude quickly dampened my spirits as she asked if I had already checked in. Admitting I hadn't, I started to look around frantically to head for the check-in, only to be stopped immediately by her. Planning to go without your ticket? You can't check in empty-handed, you know. Trying to shake off my embarrassment, I smiled awkwardly and turned away. Then, my mother-in-law extended her hand towards me ominously. Give me your credit card first. You're too careless, I'll keep it for you. Although I felt uneasy about her words, I didn't want to upset her, and obediently handed over my card, then asked her to give me the ticket. Her grin twisted into an ugly sneer. What are you talking about? There's no ticket for you. Stunned, I stared blankly at her as she laughed heartily, emphasizing this was a family trip, and there was no reason for an outsider like me to join. My astonishment deepened as I looked at my father-in-law, who was also smirking at me. It was then even my naive self understood the intentions of my in-laws. Hoping for some support, I turned to Ted, but he awkwardly averted his gaze. Realizing he must have known about their scheme from the start, my spirits plummeted. My mother-in-law mocked me for my naivety as I blushed with embarrassment and misery. But look, Allison has never stayed in a 5-star hotel, right? It would be sad if she made a fool of herself there since she's clueless about proper etiquette. Hearing Ted's unhelpful words, his mother agreed, claiming this was their kindness. Overwhelmed by my emotions, I clenched my fists, unable to retort as she spoke condescendingly. Why don't you try camping around here? Since you've come all this way, at least enjoy a bit of a travel experience. Leaving that said, my mother-in-law, in good spirits with my father-in-law and Ted making an apologetic gesture, disappeared towards the boarding gate. How much time had passed? After a while, standing there with my head down, I suddenly realized I was penniless. My habit of being overly careful made me stick to my mother-in-law's instructions perfectly. I just brought the money I needed for the train and bus. Now I wish I had set up mobile payments on my phone. Now, I couldn't even afford to return home, let alone go on a trip. Realizing that my mother-in-law had taken my credit card to further torment me filled me with rage. Despite being married to Ted and living with his family, it was clear I was not considered part of the family by his parents. And for Ted, appeasing his parents was more important than his wife's feelings, making it clear that his loyalties lay with them, not with me. This realization made me completely disenchanted with the situation. All right, as you wish, Mother. I guess I'll stay around here. Muttering to myself at the empty boarding gate, I resolved to retaliate against my in-laws and Ted. Once my decision was firm, I acted swiftly, pulling out my smartphone from my bag and calling my real father without hesitation. In fact, my dad is a businessman who owns the hotel group that operates the 5-star hotel where my in-laws were supposed to stay. He had always dreamed of managing hotels since he was young, but had given up the pursuit when my mother became pregnant with me. However, his passion never faded, and eventually, he went abroad alone to learn international standards of hospitality. My mother was reluctant to raise a child in an unfamiliar country, so she decided to stay in America with me. The details of the discussions between my father and mother at that time are unclear, but they ended up divorcing, and my mother was granted custody of me, while my parents maintained family ties despite their divorce. They celebrated together when my father's dream came true, and he opened a highly successful luxury hotel abroad. After my mother's death, my father had invited me to join him overseas, but I couldn't leave my grandparents who had helped raise me. Nevertheless, I hoped to work with him someday, and continued various hotel-related jobs to understand true hospitality. Since my in-laws had never met my father, given that he was always overseas, and the wedding greetings were done over the phone, it's understandable they didn't connect me with the famous hotel owner seen on TV. As soon as my father answered, I skipped pleasantries and asked him to cancel their reservation, tearfully explaining why. While I knew it wasn't right to involve personal feelings in his business, I couldn't bear to let my in-laws win. My father was outraged and agreed immediately. However, another urgent problem was that I was out of money, which was the real reason I had called him. After the call, I learned that my father had just opened a hotel near the airport, aimed at American tourists. Stranded without money, I asked if I could stay there, knowing I couldn't immediately ask any friends for help, and still fuming over my mother-in-law's suggestion to sleep outside. I hoped to stay the night and sort out payment later. My father warmly agreed to let me stay free of charge, lamenting that this was the least he could do as a parent. Gratefully, I thanked him. About 8 hours after I had resolved to take action, my smartphone rang with a call from Ted. When I answered, what I heard was not words but a voice sobbing uncontrollably. Listening closely, I realized it was not Ted speaking, but my mother-in-law, complaining through tears. They had gone to the hotel they had booked as a trio, but the local staff had vehemently rebuked them for disrespecting the president's daughter of the hotel group. They were told that such people were not welcome to stay, and were turned away from the hotel. Is the president of that 5-star hotel your father? When my mother-in-law confronted me, asking if it was true that my father owned the hotel, I confirmed it. She then accused me of hiding the truth. Annoyed by her implication that I was at fault, I responded coldly. Why should I? To me, you are not family, just strangers. What? The phone was on speaker, and I could hear the shock in their voices. Imagining Ted's flustered face amused me. He would never guess that the woman he abandoned at the airport was now lying in a sweet bed. I'm divorcing Ted. Please fill out the divorce papers when I get back. I'll have everything prepared by the time you return, I stated decisively. Ted frantically pleaded, asking if this was because he never stood up to his parents, and promising it would change. But it was too late. What now? It's too late by then. As I was about to hang up the phone, cutting off any chance for Ted to explain or apologize, my mother-in-law, who had previously been so domineering, suddenly sounded desperate to stop me. Wait, please. We've tried other hotels, but everything is fully booked. What are we supposed to do now? Why don't you sleep outside then? I snorted and spat it out, and as if I had just remembered, I told her that I was staying near the airport, as my mother-in-law had suggested. Well, I'm not actually outside but in a hotel suite. Realizing what I implied, my mother-in-law's voice turned frantic. You mean? After saying what I needed to, I didn't pay attention to her anymore and just ended the call. What happened to them afterwards didn't concern me. I had my phone number changed and left all the divorce proceedings to a lawyer, effectively making us strangers in every sense. Now, I'm dedicating myself to studying management and hospitality more than ever, aiming to repay my father's kindness and prove myself in his business.
One day, my husband asked me, "Hey, how much money do we have in that two-ball?" I chuckled. Probably around $500,000 in total now. The next day, when I got home, there was a signed divorce paper on the living room table, and both my husband and the vault were gone. My name is Helen. I'm a 58-year-old working housewife. I still work hard at my job. You see, my hobby is saving money. When I was a child, my mother opened a savings account for me. She told me that depositing money in the bank made the numbers in my passbook grow, and I found that very enjoyable. I started depositing a little bit at a time, starting with just $1, and enjoyed watching it grow. So when my savings grew by a few cents in interest each year, it was a delightful surprise to my young self. Being fond of money and how it works, I worked as a financial planner and gave advice on asset management. One day, a friend from college told me, "An old childhood friend is in serious trouble due to debt. Could you give him some advice?" So I decided to meet with him and my friend. This old friend was a handsome man with a refreshing smile. My friend explained, despite his looks, he loves gambling and is struggling to make ends meet. I thought you, Helen, might have some good advice. His name was Mark. As I listened to his story, Mark admitted he loved gambling just like his parents. Even worse, he had even taken on his parents' debt. Of course, he seemed to be quite worried. I found his troubled expression rather endearing. Because my friend had asked, I gladly agreed to help him. Looking back now, perhaps I had a bit of a crush on him. But I never imagined that. This would lead to a series of troublesome events. Anyway, I advised Mark to consolidate his debts and reduce his monthly payments so he can manage his life somehow. Not long after, Mark and I started dating. That friend of mine opposed it, saying I wouldn't recommend being with him. But we went ahead and got married. I thought that getting married would help us face Mark's debt together. My income is pretty good for my age group. Therefore, most of Mark's income went towards his debt, and I made sure he cut ties with his parents to prevent the debt from increasing further. I gave Mark a monthly allowance of $500. When Mark decided to cut ties, his mother yelled, "Ungrateful child, I wish I'd never given birth to you." His father also said, "Where's that thieving cat? I can't rest until I give her a piece of my mind. You don't belong to us." My husband, Mark, being exhausted from having to deal with my in-laws' debts all this time, finally told them, "Enough is enough. I'm not your ATM. I'm trying my best here," and came back to me. He finally felt relieved to be free from my in-laws, who constantly been bringing up their debts. Soon after, we had a son. Our son, Kevin, is handsome just like Mark. He's my pride and joy. Kevin seemed to pick up on his father's lack of discipline and indecisiveness. Just as our son had noticed, Mark's carefree character didn't change. Borrowing money from predatory lenders, dealing with loan sharks, tricking friends into lending him money to gamble it away, we went through a lot. But I managed to keep Mark in line. As 23 years went by, and recently, we finally got down Mark's debt to about $10,000. We're almost at full repayment. At that moment, Mark received a call from his parents. "Please help us, your father has collapsed. We're at the hospital now, can you come?" "What? Which hospital? What's his condition? Is that okay?" "Your father suddenly collapsed and we had to call an ambulance. Mom, pull yourself together. What hospital are you at?" Mark left work early and came to the hospital. Then he messaged me, "Helen, Dad collapsed. I'm at the hospital now. I'm sorry, I broke our promise and went to see my parents. I'm really sorry." "What? Your dad collapsed? So, how is he now?" "He had a minor stroke. His life isn't in danger, but he shouldn't overexert himself. Both my parents are feeling low. I want to stay with them for a while. Is that okay?" "Of course, honey. Go and comfort them. Should I come too?" "No, it's okay if you're busy with work and they might treat you poorly again." I gave Mark a little extra money for hospital visits. They probably couldn't pay for the hospital fees. Since then, Mark seems to visit his parents often. Each time, he took $200, $300 from me. I guess my in-laws are struggling financially and are taking a little bit from Mark. It amounted to around $1,000 to $2,000 a month, but I let it slide for now. A year has passed since my father-in-law collapsed. Both my in-laws have aged, and I guess they wanted someone to lean on. My hobby, as always, is saving money. One day, I took out my bank book from the vault and grinned. Usually Mark, who wasn't interested in me, stared at me and asked, "Hey, how much money do we have in that bank account you always look at so happily?" "It's about $500,000 now," I answered casually. But the next morning, I filled out divorce form was left in the living room and both Mark and the safe were gone. As I was having breakfast, I couldn't help but smile. I knew Mark had been eyeing the money in the vault. Moreover, he had planned to take the entire vault. He's really not smart, but imagining him carrying the whole vault almost made me burst out laughing. We have a black cat named Luna. We've installed a pet camera to watch her. Luna's adorable antics are the healing moments of my day. There I was, watching that camera during my lunch breaks. No matter when I look, my child is just adorable. One day, as I switched on the camera, there they were in our living room on a weekday, my in-laws and my husband, Mark. And they were having an unbelievable conversation. "Oh, you're living in such a nice house, Mark. Let's have a good salary. Makes your mother so proud," they said, flattering my husband. "Indeed, I am proud," responded Mark's father. "You know, I make a pretty decent salary myself, but Helen takes all of it, so I only get an allowance of $500 a month," Mark said. "Oh, you poor thing. You've been working so hard. Your mother understands," they consoled. "I can't believe she takes all your salary and only $500 a month. That's outrageous. You should be getting more." "Why are you obeying such a tyrant like Helen?" they exclaimed. "You could be living much better on your own," they continued. "You're our pride, Mark. You could have saved hundreds of thousands by now, but she's just exploiting you, you poor thing," they said, as my mother-in-law began to sob. "Yeah, I've been thinking the same thing." "You guys are right," Mark agreed. "What is he talking about?" He seemed to have completely forgotten that I've been working hard to pay off his debt. I wonder what's going on inside their heads. Moreover, in the past, who was burdened with debt from his parents and had to give them cash every month, making it difficult for him to get by? "You know, she has a bank book with tons of savings stashed away. It's not fair that I only get $500, Mark complained. The moment he said that, my in-laws' eyes lit up. They exchanged glances. "So, how much is in the bank book?" They leaned in eagerly, awaiting his answer. Last I heard, I think it was around $400K or $500K, Mark said. "Mark, isn't that money rightfully yours?" they asked. "It might not match the effort you've put in, but isn't it money you should be receiving?" "Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm starting to think the same thing," Mark conceded. Despite his good looks, Mark is indecisive and easily influenced by others. I used to find this indecisiveness endearing and devoted myself to him wholeheartedly. We've managed to reduce his nearly $200,000 debt down to $10,000, yet it looks like he's being manipulated by his parents again, and they're about to touch my precious savings. Seeing this scene was so pathetic. I was at my desk at work, tears streaming down my face as I held my phone. I've been putting aside my living expenses from Art using his income, mostly to pay off the debt. On top of that, I was providing him with an allowance of $500 out of my own. Despite explaining this to Mark, it seems he's completely forgotten. What have these past 23 years been for? I felt so sad and pitiful. My heart aches as if I was drowning in my own tears. It's not... I felt like I was disappearing, on the verge of breaking. But I made sure to record the conversation and sent the data to my son. That day, I left work early due to sickness. I went to my usual bar and drank heavily, spilling out everything to the bartender. In such a state, the bartender comforted me gently. He casually said, "Why do you grieve such a person? You did nothing wrong. There's no need to live for them. Live for yourself." At that moment, all my intoxication and love for my husband faded. "Thank you, sir. Next time, we'll share a pleasant drink." I went back home after I said that to the bartender, entering my study. I began to think, how would I steal the bank book inside that vault? I couldn't even begin to imagine, but I needed to devise a plan. I will show them hell. They shouldn't underestimate me. I concentrated harder than usual. Gathering evidence was the first step. From then on, I frequently checked the pet camera every day. Then the ugly truths began to surface. My husband was bringing home a young woman during his supposed work hours. It seems like he was bringing her over about 3 times a week. I couldn't believe I had to witness my husband's infidelity when all I wanted was to watch her cat, Luna. Luna also seemed to be scared and wouldn't show up. They ruined my precious relaxation time. No, more than that, they betrayed me, which I can't forgive. One day, I'll punish them severely. One day, while I was working, I activated the pet camera. This time, it wasn't the woman my husband was having an affair with. but my in-laws were at our house again. "So, is everything arranged to take that bank book from Helen?" they said with an unpleasant grin. "You're smart. You must have thought of something, right?" "Yeah, I thought about it. I'm thinking of taking the entire vault. It'll be easy." "Hey, that vault is quite heavy. Are you sure you can do it?" "I'll be fine. I'll load it on a cart. Help me out, Dad." "All right. I'll assist you anytime." The safe weighed about 120 pounds. As I suspected, my husband Mark was good-looking, but not very smart. I pledged in my heart once again to drag these people down to the depths of hell. If we have that money from that bank book, we can go to the casino as a family. We can live as a family of 3 again, they said. "That's right. Let's live happily with the money from that bank book, right, Mark?" "Yeah, but I do feel a little bad about Helen. She was saving up so happily." "Working about, and money that she saved up, here that we take it. You can't be so weak. Well, we're doing this for your happiness, remember?" "Right, I'll be happy. Besides, you found a new wife, haven't you?" "Quickly divorce that woman. I have to divorce for her Saka as well. I'll leave the divorce papers here then." "That's right. We're waiting for the money from that bank book and the new wife, so I'm going to be divorced." Well, I guess that makes sense. I found myself strangely accepting. But just how down bad are these people for some money? I was sipping coffee at my office desk, recording the scene on my phone screen. I wasn't even upset or sad anymore. If they had such intentions, so did I. I was going to show them all hell. I was fired up. And then, the day finally came. "Hey, how much money is in that passbook on the vault? You always seem so happy when you're looking at it." "Right now, there's about $500,000 in there." The next day, when I got home, there was a signed divorce paper in the living room, and both my husband and the vault were gone. I had a smirk on my face while having breakfast. I acted quickly afterward. I immediately filed the divorce papers and contacted my son right away. "Kevin, your father finally stole a vault. Can't believe he managed to carry it. It's so heavy." "Mom, I think it's about time you end things with Dad. By the way, did he take everything in the vault too?" "Actually, I moved all the money to online banking. The passbook is essentially worthless now. The most valuable thing might have been the safe itself, since it was so heavy." "Oh, by the way, I've already filed the divorce papers. Now I'm thinking about filing a police report. What do you think?" "If you should file a police report, and it would be best to hire a lawyer." "Oh, right, a lawyer. I already had a private investigator on it, but hadn't thought about a lawyer. Thanks. I'm cutting ties with that too." Kevin seemed exasperated. As Kevin suggested, I reached out to a lawyer through my private investigative contact. I handed over the recording from my pet camera to the police and the lawyer and waited. After a while, I received a call from my ex-husband. He sounded quite frantic. "What the hell? The passbook is empty. What happened to the $500,000? You tricked me. That was my money. Where is it? Tell me now. If not, I'm going back to the house and abandoning your cat, Luna." "You just committed theft, and now you're threatening me. From now on, communicate through my lawyer," I said, and blocked his number. I reported the incident to the police and sent the recording to my lawyer. Oh, what a relief. This is what I wanted to do. Karma is a real pain. I got a call from the police shortly after. "We have caught the thief. However, the vault was damaged. It appears he forced it open. The things inside it were burned. My ex-husband and his parents learned that the passbook balance was 0, and apparently they set the things inside the vault on fire." Even though it was his first offense, my ex-husband spent a few days in police custody. His parents were released with a stern warning. My ex-husband broke into the house he used to live in after he was released. "Hey, open up. I've come back. I'm sorry. It was just a small prank. Let me in. Let's talk. You haven't filed the divorce papers yet, have we? We're still married, right? Don't make a scene in front of the house. This is no longer your house. I've already filed the divorce papers. We are strangers now. Leave now, or I'll call the police," I said firmly. "You jerk! This is my house. Open up. Open up." I called the police when he started causing a scene. 10 minutes later, he was taken away by the police again. I then called my lawyer, explained what happened, and had him start the process of getting a restraining order. Afterwards, I asked my lawyer to sue for emotional distress due to infidelity. The lawyer said we might not get much money from his broke family, but none of that really matters. I'm definitely going to demand alimony. It seems the reason he broke into our house was because he was discarded by his mistress and apparently wanted to get back with me. His mistress promptly transferred $10,000 in alimony and seemed to have fled. It seems they split after the vault incident. When the money runs out, so does the love. I'm sure he was enticed by my $500,000. My underpaid ex-husband, who still has $10,000 in debt, and his gambling-addicted parents seem to be struggling with daily life. He appeared to be living in an old single-room apartment without a bath, constantly quarreling among the three of them. This information came from my lawyer. My ex-husband pleaded, "I can't afford to pay the alimony. Please reduce the amount." And my ex-husband, who got involved with the police, was on the verge of retirement but apparently got fired from his company. The elderly parents-in-law have managed to find jobs in cleaning and seem to be barely making ends meet. My ex-husband is now working 3 part-time jobs, but these 3 are gambling addicts. So no matter how much money they have, it disappears. There's no helping them. I had my lawyer tell them, "No reduction. Stay away from her. If you're really sorry, show it with money." If he had stayed with me, he had planned to end the remaining $10,000 debt by the time he retired. But he fell for the sweet talk of his gambling-addicted parents-in-law. At the end, how foolish. This $500,000 is an accumulation of my savings that I have started building from a very young age. I find it enjoyable to say, small change. There's just something fun about updating the bank book. So, I think I'll start a new bank book right now. I'm living a relaxed life with my black cat Luna. My son visits occasionally and tells me about his girlfriend. This time, I'm going to spend time for myself. I need to buy a new vault, one that's so big that a person can't carry it, right, Luna? I am the happiest I've ever been.
My name is Wendy Hansen. I'm a 30-year-old office worker, and currently in the happiest state of my life as I'm about to get married. My life has been filled with sadness until now. Ever since my younger sister, Emma, was born, I've felt lonely. My mother occasionally paid attention to me, but mostly it was all about Emma. Emma was allowed to take various lessons, whereas I was never given such opportunities. I'm graduating from this sad and difficult environment. I'm marrying Robert, whom I've been dating for many years. I didn't like going to my parents' house, but I had to visit for the marriage greeting. When I arrived, Emma was waiting with a smile. I muttered words to myself, but kept a pleasant face and began the greetings. Then, Emma constantly ridiculed him until she found out what he was doing. After that, it was a barrage of questions for Robert. She ignored me and kept asking him questions. I had a bad feeling, but nothing happened. And we were able to have our wedding without issues. I cherished the joy of marrying the man I love, wearing the wedding dress I had dreamed of. As the ceremony progressed and we were about to kiss, a dramatic scene unfolded. Wait a minute. Suddenly, my sister stood up. What now? Sister, how could you do this to me? What's wrong? Everyone, please listen. My sister looks happy, but she stole him from me. We've been together for a long time, but my sister. She's making a happy face after stealing my boyfriend. The child in my stomach is his child. Please give him back to me. Wendy, as a sister, what are you doing? Stealing a boyfriend from your cute sister. The wedding is off. Either that or change the bride. Your father's order is absolute. Sister, please, give him back to me. Emma was crying and clinging to me, and our father kept making appeals. What are you talking about? You. What are you laughing at? Unbelievable. Please give me a break. Robert, you're laughing too? Why are you laughing? Well, that's right. You left pregnant Emma for Wendy, didn't you? That's the worst. Dad, Emma, please give me a break. I can't stop laughing. All this time, you've only been a nuisance to my life. And now you even come to disrupt my wedding? Sister, that's awful. I'm pregnant. That's why I'm laughing. Because, when I continued speaking, Emma and our father were shocked. We already knew that Emma would disrupt the wedding like this. Why did we know? Because Robert had been telling me everything Emma was doing to him. I've been talking to Robert about my parents and Emma since we were kids. Therefore, Robert was worried about me. That's why whenever Emma took any action, Robert informed me immediately. Since Robert went to greet my parents for our marriage, Emma had been clinging to him nonstop. She became interested in him because he said he was a company president. Robert and I have been together since elementary school, childhood friends. While my parents went out to buy new clothes for Emma or to her lesson recitals, I couldn't understand why I was never taken along and spent my time alone in the park. I knew they always went to eat barbecue after Emma's recitals. So I once asked my father why I couldn't go. He said, "We don't have the money to take you." If that was the case, they should have stopped the 5 different lessons Emma was taking. But I couldn't understand why I, who was born first, was treated so casually. As sad as it was, I thought it was pointless to say anything. So I always played alone in the park when my father and Emma were away. The one who played with me was Robert. Robert didn't have family problems and was raised by wonderful parents. His parents, always worried about me, told their classmate Robert, "Play with her. It's dangerous for a girl to be alone," and he always came to play. I really liked Robert from a young age, and he gradually started to like me too. In middle school, we began dating. What Robert said then was, "At first it was more like playing with a little sister, but gradually I came to like you." Indeed, at first, it was probably out of pity. However, our relationship has continued since middle school. When Emma first encountered Robert and me together in high school, I returned home to hear, "I can't stand to see people happy. But if it's such an unattractive guy, I don't need him." "Sister, you're plain, so he suits you." "Such a boring and plain guy, just right for my sister." "Sister is so dull, no one will ever love you, so he's just right for you." "Have you seen my boyfriend? I just stole him from a classmate, he's the most handsome guy in school." Despite being sisters, the difference in our boyfriends is like heaven and earth. "Sister, you can't compare to me in anything. In studies, sports, number of friends, number of lovers, and even our parents' love." Right. Are we done here? Oh dear. You're sulking because I hit the nail on the head. It was always like this. But I love Robert, and that's enough for me. Indeed, I can't compare to Emma in studies, sports, the number of friends, or past lovers, nor the affection from our parents. But none of that matters. I have a loving partner and friends. While family certainly means blood relations, being connected by blood is all it is. Family isn't the only source of love, nor the only place where I can give love. I might be seen as lonely, but I'm fine with that. I have been with Robert all this time, but during that period, Emma has been dating various men. Every week, a different man would visit our house, which honestly disgusted me. I disliked it so much that I spent a lot of time at Robert's house. His parents are incredibly kind, and being with them was always comfortable. They would say every day, "Marry soon and come live with us." I was truly happy. When I returned home, I would return to a house under Queen Emma's reign. Emma, what about your driver's license? I can drive when I turn 16, right? If so, I want a car when I turn 16. Then get Wendy to buy it for you. She's starting a job next month, right? Once she gets her first paycheck, she should take out a loan and buy a car. That's a great idea. Sister, please. That plain boyfriend of yours, his parents seem to have strong connections, right? It wouldn't be bad if they bought you a car under the pretext it's for my sister. Enough already. What do you think I am? But you're the older sister? You are Emma's sister, aren't you? Then act like it. Always a nuisance at home. What are you thinking? Hey. Did I just say I'm always a nuisance? How much of a nuisance have I been? I even paid back my high school tuition with part-time jobs. And my junior college tuition was almost nothing since I entered as a scholarship student. And I paid it with my own part-time job earnings. I even paid for my license with savings, and I plan to buy a car once I start working. Give me a break. I'll be leaving home next week. Do whatever you like. Saying this, I went into my room. Even my room was the attic. As Emma grew and accumulated more stuff, my room became Emma's. And I was relegated to the attic. This life is over for me. Starting next week, I stayed at Robert's parents' house. Once I got a job, Robert and I planned to move to New York. So I decided to stay with them for a while. Since then, I had virtually no contact with my family until the marriage greeting. And I hadn't met Emma or my parents even once. When we finally met for the marriage greeting after a long time, Emma greeted us with a smirk. When she realized my boyfriend was Robert, she burst into laughter. Oh dear. Even that plain guy has improved a bit. But he's not on my level. What a relief. I was worried what I would do if my sister's boyfriend turned out to be high-spec. But I guess I didn't need to worry. Robert is Wendy's boyfriend? He can't be decent. Right. I worried for nothing. She began to mock us. And? What is that plain guy even doing? It'd be great if he was still a freeter at this age. Nice to meet you again, I'm Robert Hansen. I'm currently the president of a venture company in New York. The reason our marriage was delayed was because it took time to get the company off the ground, but now we are finally able to marry. It seems we're not very welcome here, so now that the greetings are done, we'll take our leave. Huh? What? President? What? Wendy's husband is a president? That's right. So, goodbye. We'll send the wedding invitation later, but if you don't come, that's fine too. As Robert and I tried to leave the house, wait. If you're going, go alone. Robert is also becoming family, we'd like to talk to him. No, I have nothing to discuss, so excuse us. Saying this, Robert took my hand and we left the house. It's just as you said. Their eyes changed the moment you said president. That's embarrassing. Sorry for making you feel uncomfortable. It's okay. Wendy, you did nothing wrong. Thank you. Saying this, we returned to our normal life, but a change occurred the next day. Emma went out of her way to come to New York and started hitting on Robert. She searched for his name online, found his company, and tried to get involved. However, Robert isn't the type to be swayed by such things. Whether she disliked that or was fueled because he was unattainable, in the end, she tried to get a job at Robert's company by interviewing, but of course, she was rejected. I thought she would give up after this, but to my surprise, she started a relationship with one of the company's managers. Then she would ask about Robert's drinking parties from the manager, and tried to show up pretending to be there coincidentally, or even tried to force her way into a taxi Robert was taking. She kept taking the worst actions, knowing she had been acting this way. I could laugh when she made such assertions at the wedding. And there was another reason why we were laughing. It was because Robert cannot have children. We found out Robert was infertile when we both underwent a bridal check before. The reason my marriage was delayed wasn't only because of the time it took to stabilize his company, but also because Robert was resisting, thinking I might want children. In fact, we were already engaged when I started working, and Robert was launching his business. We were supposed to get married immediately, but unexpected issues extended our engagement to nearly 10 years. During that time, Robert and I had faced many conflicts. I can't have a family. You can have children, but you can't build a happy family with me. That's why you shouldn't marry me. Why would you say that? I've never known a happy family before. I wasn't even loved by my parents, so what does a happy family mean? Moreover, I don't even know if I can love my own children. I just don't know how to love. But I was certainly happy receiving love from you and your parents. However, I honestly don't know how cute my own children would be. I just don't know. But it's okay. I love you. So, let's not talk about children anymore. For now, just focus on getting the company on track, and once it's settled, marry me. If you hate me and never want to deal with me again, that's fine. But if you feel even a little upset seeing me walking with another man, you must still love me, right? Is it okay? If you leave me, I will appear before you walking with another man I don't know. I hate that. Are you really okay with that? Of course. Please, let's stay together so Robert cannot have children. I didn't want to say this in front of everyone as it might hurt Robert, but he made it clear. I can't have children. So, it's impossible that you have my child. I am infertile. There was a moment of silence in the venue after Robert's confession. However, gradually, applause broke out. It must have been a round of applause moved by his courageous confession. Emma's face was contorted, and all eyes in the venue were directed at her with not a gentle expression. Everyone was looking at her coldly. Come on. She started it. Let's listen carefully. Whose child is it, and why did she disrupt our happiest day? Can we get an answer? It was the first time I saw Robert looking so intimidating, even though we have been together since elementary school. Whose child is it? You need to tell us clearly. Could it be that you don't even know whose child it is? Because you've been involved with someone from our company? As Robert pressed her, Emma's face grew more and more contorted. Then, a manager from Robert's company who was sitting in the middle of the venue stood up. Didn't you tell me before that you were pregnant with my child? And took money from me to get an abortion? How did it become Robert's child? Explain that. Following this, voices rose from the venue one after another. I also gave her $1,000, me too. As Robert said, Emma had been involved with many people from his company. It was truly chaotic. What kind of wedding is this? I don't know if the father ever thought such a thing would happen, or really believed it was Robert's child, but he just stood there stunned. However, suddenly, he began yelling. If someone in the company got my daughter pregnant, you as the president should take responsibility. You should just marry Emma quickly. Come on, Wendy. You are her sister, right? Give up your place to her. I was so appalled I was on the verge of tears. Then, it wasn't Robert who shouted but my mother. Enough. Aren't you ashamed? Mom? I'm truly embarrassed. Wendy, I'm really sorry. I made a mistake raising Emma. I'm really sorry. When I was a child, I always felt neglected because my parents spent all their time on my older sister, and I thought if I ever had siblings, I wouldn't want them to feel that way. So I talked with your father about treating my sister equally. But maybe out of my own unfortunate experiences, I ended up prioritizing Emma for lessons and shopping. It's all my fault. I'm truly sorry. Emma. You need to apologize properly for this. Really, stop it now. My mother was confessing to me. Honestly, with everything that had happened, even when my mother said this, I couldn't just say, Mom, it's okay. Thank you. However, instead of reflecting after being scolded by our mother, Emma said, yes, it's Mom's fault. So, it's not my fault. Robert? Shall we have our vow kiss? It will all be settled then. Once we take our vows, I win. Saying this, Emma approached Robert. However, Robert refused. When she pushed a little, Emma stumbled and fell. Nonetheless, undeterred, she approached Robert again. Wait, Emma, weren't you pregnant? Pregnant? Because normally, if you were, wouldn't you panic after falling? Eh? Oh. Emma looked awkward. You, perhaps. Yes. Yes, exactly. I was never pregnant. I just thought if I said I was pregnant, people panicked and started giving me money because I didn't have any. Everyone just throws money without thinking. It's really stupid, right? People can't take responsibility for their actions. I just took money from those who have it because what I got from Dad wasn't enough. I did nothing wrong, and those who gave me money are just stupid. The thing is, I just hate my sister. Despite always being favored, she was loved by more people at school than I was. I had many friends, but they didn't really like me. They were just after the guys around me. Any man I dated and broke up with would immediately start dating my friends. And some of them even got married. They seemed bored from the moment they started dating me. But they looked happy dating my friends. And if I ever took a guy from a friend, everyone would abandon me. It was just because those men were stupid to follow me. Everyone is just using me. Yet my sister gets to go out with her close friends, and Robert is always all about her. Even Robert's family values her. What is that about? And, Mom always said she cared about me. But she was always going on about buying something for my sister. I did have my parents spend money on me. But I never felt loved. They think spending money is love. But what I really wanted was to be praised no matter what. It was never about praise for me, just rewards like barbecues, toys, or clothes. Mom would praise my sister when she scored well on tests. But when I did well, Dad would just say, Emma got good grades. We'll have to reward her after her lessons are done, and I never got praised. It's always about my sister. No one really cares about me. Robert just likes pitiful people, right? You see? I'm really pitiful, right? Why don't you switch to me? Don't be ridiculous. Sure, it's sad not to be praised, but what you've done is truly despicable. Always trying to one-up Wendy. And even disrupting such an important ceremony like this. I really hate people like you. And you seem to have hurt quite a few employees at the company. In my company, I only have capable and trustworthy staff. I don't usually give directives about personal lives. But to think that so many were deceived by someone like you is truly a terrible situation. This ceremony cannot go on. It will be postponed. And that will incur costs. You will be billed for those expenses. And I will also seek reimbursement for the money you defrauded from my employees. Unless you refund everything, I can file a police report. What you do next will greatly affect your future. What is that? Despite liking pitiful women, why am I not good enough? Wendy is not pitiful at all. My love for Wendy isn't out of pity. Wendy is always cheerful. She talks about what happens, but she never speaks ill of you or your parents. Plus, she always has dreams and works hard towards them. I found that very attractive. When I was starting up the company and it was tough, Wendy was also going through hard times. But she supported me. And Wendy didn't tell you, but she is now running a company too. Ever since we were in middle school, Wendy talked about starting a business. We talked about our dreams together. That was really fun. Wendy has channeled all her anger towards you into her dreams. And made significant strides. The way she can turn her negative feelings into energy so beautifully is truly amazing. Wendy and you are entirely different. You always blame others. But Wendy doesn't blame anyone. There's nothing to blame her for. Unfortunately, I can never forgive you. I will always love only Wendy. I've only lived for 30 years. But in that short life, I have loved Wendy for 20 years. I am confident that I will continue to love only Wendy forever. With that, Robert kissed me. The priest, who was surprised by what was happening, smiled and said, "I guess that's a vow. I'm not sure if this is okay, but for now, our ceremony is concluded." Robert's colleagues were angry with Emma, and my associates were giving her cold looks. I informed everyone to leave the venue and announced that we would hold a party on another day. Robert, my parents, Emma, and Robert's parents also joined the discussion. And we all decided that all the expenses from this incident would be charged to Emma. Although she complained, what awaited Emma was a lawsuit from the employees of Robert's company. She had already spent all the money and claimed she had none left, then ran away. Her miserable escape was such that no one bothered to chase after her. Weeks passed without any word from Emma. However, she eventually appeared before me. "Sister, you're really the worst. Emma, everyone was worried about you." "Worried? Just about whether they could get their money back?" "What do you mean?" "Never mind. I'm now in debt hell. And sister, you have Robert's money and your own from starting a business. Don't you think that's unfair?" "So, I've been thinking. You're just too happy, aren't you, sister? So, I need to make you unhappy. What are you planning to do? You only have Robert, right? Then I should just take Robert from you. Robert won't be going to you." "I know that. But what if I became a criminal?" "His company would end, he would disappear from your life. And it might even affect your company. What are you planning to do?" "I'll throw myself in front of the car Robert is driving. I don't care what happens to me, I can handle that much." "What are you saying? Are you okay?" "I'm not okay. How am I supposed to live with no money? If it hurts you and Robert, that's fine by me." "Is that so? Well, let me tell you something. Robert never drives himself, he has a chauffeur. And since I use trains, I don't ride in cars much. So your plan might not work as you think. Unfortunately, whatever you try to do is meaningless. Also, this lifestyle ends tomorrow. We had our wedding in the US, and now we're moving abroad. Robert has delegated his company to other staff members in the US. And we're moving to France to start a new company. The business we talked about starting? It's something Robert and I are doing together. We've always wanted to work in France. So, our dream is coming true. I know what you want to do to us, but we're no longer paying attention to you. I don't know what will happen to you, but as an adult, you should take responsibility for your actions. With that, Emma crumbled. I passed by her and entered the company. As Emma had said, she fell into debt hell. Several of Robert's company's employees sued her. And she tried to ask our father for help, but our mother refused. Emma was disowned and left the house. She tried to find work, but nothing went well, and she eventually turned to nightlife jobs. However, due to her selfish nature, she couldn't build good relationships with clients and was fired from several places. Eventually, with no money, she considered robbing a bank. I'm Emma. Give me the money, she declared without a weapon. Just barging into the bank, which led to her immediate arrest. Our parents didn't come to her rescue this time. Due to the stupidity of the robbery, it made the news. And Emma was quickly released, but likely won't be able to live in the US anymore. However, with no money, Emma is now working in a factory. She never paid us back for the wedding. But she's suffering more than enough, so it doesn't matter. I don't know what kind of life she will have from now on, but it's unlikely to be a good one. Robert and I are still happily living together. Life abroad was unfamiliar, but life with Robert has been happy. We'll continue to live together, aiming for our dreams. I'm sure that together, Robert and I can achieve our dreams in France. I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart.
The crystal champagne flute shattered in my hand, sending shards across the marble floor of my brother's new mansion. Blood trickled down my palm, but I barely noticed. My eyes were fixed on Jessica's face as she announced her pregnancy to our stunned family gathering. I'm Maya, and I know when someone is lying. 15 years of raising 3 boys has given me a sixth sense about deception. The way Jessica's fingers twitched against her designer dress, how her smile never quite reached her eyes. Everything screamed false. Congratulations! Mark, my husband, stepped forward to hug Alex while shooting me a warning glance. He knew my tells too. The slight tilt of my head, the way I pressed my lips together, signs I was about to say something I shouldn't. This calls for more champagne, Alex declared, beaming with pride. My brother, the successful tech entrepreneur, finally getting everything he wanted. A baby to complete his perfect life. Tyler, my middle son, appeared at my side with a napkin. Mom, you're bleeding. His quiet voice anchored me back to reality. I wrapped the cloth around my palm, watching the red bloom through the white fabric. When are you due? I asked Jessica, keeping my voice light. She hesitated for a fraction too long. March, she said, one hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. Wrong move. I'd been pregnant 3 times. No woman that early touches her stomach that way unless she's acting. Ryan, my eldest, was watching the exchange with narrowed eyes. At 18, he had inherited my bullshit detector. Lucas, my youngest, had already retreated to a corner with his phone, typical 14-year-old behavior. We should toast, Mark announced, trying to diffuse the tension crackling through the room. To Alex and Jessica's growing family. Everyone raised their glasses except me. I was too busy watching Jessica's face as she pretended to sip her champagne. The glass never touched her lips. Actually, Alex cleared his throat. We have another announcement. He glanced at Jessica, who gave him an encouraging nod. We've been thinking about adoption, too. Having a bigger family, maybe? The room went silent. I felt Mark's hand squeeze my shoulder. We thought, Jessica continued, her voice honey-sweet, that since you have 3 wonderful boys, Maya... She let the sentence hang there, heavy with implication. The cut on my palm throbbed. What exactly are you suggesting? Nothing concrete, Alex jumped in. Just floating the idea. Ryan's heading to college soon, and we have so much space here. Stop. The word came out sharper than I intended. Just stop right there. Maya, Mark warned softly. But I was already moving toward Jessica, who took an involuntary step back. First a miracle pregnancy, now you want one of my sons? What's your game? I don't know what you mean, Jessica's voice wavered. We just want to share our blessings. Bullshit. The word echoed through the massive living room. You've barely spoken 10 words to my boys in the 2 years you've been with Alex. Now suddenly you want to play mom? That's enough. Alex stepped between us, his face flushed. You're out of line, Maya. Am I? I looked at my brother, really looked at him. The dark circles under his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. What's really going on here, Alex? Before he could answer, Jessica suddenly pressed a hand to her mouth and rushed from the room, the perfect excuse to end the conversation. I should check on her, Alex muttered, following his wife. Mark came up behind me, wrapping an arm around my waist. Well, that was quite a party. I watched my 3 sons huddled together, whispering. Ryan's protective stance, Tyler's concerned frown, Lucas's defiant glare. My boys. My family. Something's not right, I said quietly, and I'm going to find out what it is. Just don't do anything rash, Mark replied, but we both knew it was too late for that warning. The game was already in motion, and I intended to win. 3 days after the disastrous pregnancy announcement, I stood in Alex's empty kitchen, staring at the prescription bottle I'd found hidden behind the coffee maker. The label had been partially scratched off, but I could make out enough to know these weren't vitamins. Looking for something? Jessica's voice made me jump. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching me with those calculating eyes. I held up the bottle. Fertility medications, interesting place to keep them. You shouldn't snoop through other people's things. Her voice was steady, but her fingers dug into her arms. And you shouldn't lie about being pregnant to my brother. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. From the living room, I could hear Mark and Alex laughing about something, the sound jarring against our tension. You don't understand, Jessica finally said. Alex needs this. Needs what? A fake pregnancy? Or one of my children? She moved closer, lowering her voice. He's sick, Maya. Really sick. The doctors gave him 6 months, maybe less. The bottle nearly slipped from my hand. You're lying. Am I? Why do you think he's so desperate for an heir? For family? Her perfect mask cracked slightly. He won't tell you because he can't stand the idea of you pitying him. If this is another manipulation, Ryan already knows. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Your perfect eldest son has been spending time with us, helping Alex get his affairs in order. He understands what's at stake. My phone buzzed, a text from Ryan. Coming over to Uncle Alex's, need to talk to you. You stay away from my son, I hissed, but Jessica just smiled. He came to us, Maya, because he sees the bigger picture, the legacy Alex could leave him, the opportunities. The front door opened and Ryan's voice carried through the house. Mom? In here, I called, not taking my eyes off Jessica. Ryan entered the kitchen, freezing when he saw us. At 18, he looked so much like Alex at that age, the same determined jaw, the same ambitious glint in his eyes. I see you two are talking, he said carefully. Your aunt was just explaining how you've been helping Uncle Alex. The words tasted bitter. Behind my back. Mom, don't. I held up my hand. Just tell me if it's true, about Alex being sick. Ryan's silence was answer enough. Jessica slipped past us, pausing at the door. I'll give you two a moment. Once she was gone, Ryan slumped against the counter. I wanted to tell you, but Uncle Alex made me promise. How long have you known? 2 months. He collapsed during one of our lunch meetings. I drove him to the hospital. The bottle in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. And the adoption idea? Was that yours or hers? His. He wants to make sure his company stays in the family. Jessica, she just wants what's best for him. I laughed, harsh and hollow. Best for him or best for her? Why do you hate her so much? Because she's lying about something. I can feel it. I set the bottle down carefully. And now she's using you to manipulate this situation. Nobody's using me. Ryan straightened, looking more like his uncle than ever. I'm making my own choices. Are you? Or are you just seeing dollar signs and opportunities? The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd gone too far. Ryan's face hardened. You don't get to judge me, not when you've spent years telling us to look out for family. Well, Uncle Alex's family too. He stormed out, leaving me alone with the damning evidence of Jessica's deception and the weight of too many secrets. Mark appeared in the doorway. Everything okay? Ryan just left looking pretty upset. I picked up the fertility medication bottle and handed it to him. We need to talk about Alex, Jessica, and what they're really planning for our family. His eyes widened as he read the label, then looked at me. What do you want to do? First, I'm going to find out exactly what kind of game Jessica's playing. Then, I took the bottle back, clutching it tight. I'm going to make sure she loses. The private investigator's file landed on my kitchen table with a dull thud. Jessica Mitchell doesn't exist, he said, at least not before 2019. I flipped through the documents, each page revealing another lie. What was her name before? Sarah Winters, then Rachel Cooper, then Elizabeth James. He tapped different photos, showing the same face under different names. She's got a pattern. Wealthy men, short marriages, generous divorces. My coffee went cold as I absorbed the implications. 3 previous marriages, each ending with substantial settlements. Each husband mysteriously ill during the divorce proceedings. My phone buzzed. Tyler. Mom, something's wrong with Uncle Alex. At hospital, come quick. The drive to the hospital was a blur of red lights and racing thoughts. I found Tyler in the waiting room, his usual calm demeanor cracked. He collapsed during lunch with Ryan, he said. They won't tell us anything because we're not immediate family. Jessica's in there with him. Where's your brother? Ryan's, with her. The way he said it made my skin crawl. I spotted them down the hall, Jessica and Ryan heads bent together in conversation. The sight of my son standing so close to her, nodding at whatever poison she was whispering, made my hands shake. Mrs. Wilson? A doctor approached, chart in hand. Your brother's asking for you. Alex looked small in the hospital bed, tubes snaking from his arms. Hey, sis. He managed a weak smile. Sorry for the drama. Cut the bullshit, I said, closing the door. I know about Jessica's other husbands. His face didn't register surprise, just resignation. How long have you known? Long enough. The question is, how long have you known? He closed his eyes. Since before the wedding. I hired someone to investigate her past after I found some inconsistencies in her story. And you married her anyway? Because I loved her. Love her. He coughed, harsh and wet, and because by then the cancer was already stage 4. The truth hit like a physical blow. You're not just sick, you're dying. 6 months was optimistic. It's spreading faster than they thought. His hand trembled as he reached for water. Jessica knows everything. About her past, about my prognosis. We made a deal. A deal. She stays, plays the grieving widow, gets her settlement. In exchange, she helps secure Ryan's future in the company. My blood ran cold. You're using my son as a pawn? I'm securing his future, my legacy. Alex's voice strengthened with conviction. Ryan has the drive, the intelligence, with Jessica's guidance. Her manipulation, you mean? I leaned closer. She's done this before, Alex. 3 times. And each husband died under suspicious circumstances during divorce proceedings. He waved off my concern. Those were different. She loves me. Like she loved the others? Did you even check how they died? A nurse knocked, entering with medication. I stepped back, watching Jessica slip in behind her, Ryan hovering in the doorway. Everything okay in here? Jessica's voice dripped concern, but her eyes were sharp. Just fine, I replied, matching her tone. Alex was telling me about your arrangement. Something flickered across her perfect mask. Fear? Anger? She recovered quickly, moving to Alex's side. Darling, you should rest. Mom, Ryan started, but I cut him off. Not now. I headed for the door, pausing beside my son. We'll talk about this at home. In the hallway, Tyler waited with Lucas, who had finally arrived. Is Uncle Alex okay? I looked at my younger sons, untouched by Jessica's influence, and made a decision. No, he's not, and neither is your brother. What do you mean? Lucas asked. Through the window, I watched Jessica adjust Alex's pillows, playing the devoted wife while Ryan looked on admiringly. The perfect picture of family devotion, except I'd seen the autopsy reports of her previous husbands. All three had died from seemingly natural causes, their symptoms matching Alex's current condition perfectly. It means, I said, pulling my sons close, that we're going to save your uncle and your brother, whether they want to be saved or not. How? Tyler asked. I thought of the private investigator's file, of Jessica's pattern, of my son being drawn into her web. By destroying Jessica before she can destroy our family. The boys exchanged worried looks, but I was already planning my next move. Sometimes, to protect the ones you love, you have to embrace the darkness they're too naive to see. The toxicology report sat unopened on my laptop screen for 20 minutes before I found the courage to click. 3 previous husbands, 3 similar patterns of declining health. Trace amounts of thallium found during the final autopsy of husband number 2, dismissed as environmental exposure. My phone lit up with a text from Ryan. Meeting Jessica for lunch to discuss Uncle Alex's treatment options. Don't try to stop me. I closed the laptop and grabbed my keys, but Mark blocked the doorway. Before you go charging in there, we need to talk. She's poisoning my brother, Mark, and our son is walking right into her web. I know. He held up a manila envelope. The private investigator found something else, about Ryan. Inside were photos. Ryan and Jessica at various restaurants, coffee shops, his hand on her arm, her fingers brushing his shoulder. The timestamps went back months, long before Alex's diagnosis. It gets worse, Mark said quietly. Check the bank statements. $10,000 transferred from Jessica's personal account to a new account in Ryan's name. The date matched Alex's first hospital admission. My hands shook as I dialed Ryan's number. Straight to voicemail. He's not at lunch with Jessica, Tyler said from the stairs, making me jump. He's at the hospital with Uncle Alex. I just got off the phone with Lucas. He's there too. Why didn't they tell me? Tyler's face darkened. Because Jessica convinced them you're trying to sabotage Uncle Alex's recovery. She showed them emails supposedly from you to his board of directors, trying to have him declared mentally unfit. Those are fake. I know, Mom. That's why I hacked her laptop. Mark and I stared at our middle son, who shrugged. What? Someone had to do something while you were playing detective. He pulled out his phone, showing us screenshots. She's been planning this for over a year. The adoption idea? That was Ryan's suggestion, not Uncle Alex's. He and Jessica, they've been having an affair, I finished, the words tasting like ash. Not exactly. Tyler scrolled through more messages. She promised to make him CEO after Uncle Alex dies. Said she could convince the board if Ryan played along with her plan. Mark cursed under his breath. She's manipulating both brothers. 3, Tyler corrected. Lucas is involved too. She's been helping him apply to private schools behind your back, promising to pay his tuition if he supports her story about your mental state. The room spun slightly. I gripped the counter, trying to process the layers of betrayal. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your brother's condition is deteriorating. Shame about the mix-up with his medication. But then, accidents happen when family members interfere with treatment plans. Mom, Tyler's voice seemed far away. What are we going to do? I looked at the photos again. My eldest son, my dying brother, my youngest being pulled into Jessica's elaborate scheme, each of them thinking they were getting what they wanted, none seeing the poison she was feeding them all. We're going to give her exactly what she wants, I said finally. Mark's eyebrows shot up. You can't be serious. Tyler, can you get into her banking records? He nodded slowly. Already have. She's got offshore accounts under her previous names. Good, because we're going to help her kill my brother. What? Both Mark and Tyler exclaimed. I picked up the toxicology report. She's careful, patient. Each death looked natural because she took her time. But if Alex dies too quickly, with too much poison in his system, the police will investigate, Tyler finished, understanding dawning on his face. And when they do, they'll find the evidence of her previous murders, along with proof that she's been manipulating my children. I turned to Mark. Unless you have a better idea? He studied my face for a long moment. You're talking about letting your brother die to catch her. I'm talking about sacrificing one life to save three. My voice cracked. Because if we don't stop her now, Ryan will spend years under her control. Lucas will be trapped in her web, and who knows how many other families she'll destroy. Tyler's phone chimed. Ryan's texting. Uncle Alex is asking for you. Says it's urgent. I grabbed my keys again, this time with purpose. Time to give Jessica her final performance. You two know what to do. As I drove to the hospital, I tried not to think about how revenge had twisted me into someone who could plot her own brother's death. But sometimes, fighting monsters means becoming one yourself. The family dinner felt like sitting on a powder keg. Alex barely touched his food, while Jessica kept refilling his wine glass with practiced care. Ryan sat at her right hand, playing the devoted nephew, while Lucas sulked at the far end of the table. Only Tyler watched everything with the same calculating gaze I'd come to rely on. The doctors are very optimistic, Jessica announced, her hand resting possessively on Alex's shoulder. The new treatment protocol is showing promise. Which doctors? The words slipped out before I could stop them. The ones who prescribed the medication I found in your drawer? The crystal wine glass in Jessica's hand trembled slightly. I don't know what you're implying. Mom, Ryan warned, but I was done playing nice. 3 previous husbands, Jessica, all dead within 2 years of marriage, all with similar symptoms to Alex's current condition. The silence that followed was deafening. Alex's fork clattered against his plate. That's ridiculous, Jessica laughed, but her eyes were sharp as razors. Ryan, tell your mother she's being paranoid. Ryan cleared his throat. Mom's been under a lot of stress lately. Maybe we should show them the transfer records. I cut in. The ones proving she's been paying you to support her story. The color drained from Ryan's face. Lucas sat up straighter, suddenly interested. What transfer records? Alex's voice was barely a whisper. Jessica stood abruptly, wine sloshing over the rim of her glass. I won't sit here and listen to these accusations. Alex needs rest, not this toxic environment. Sit down. Tyler's command surprised everyone. He pulled out his phone, sliding it across the table to Alex. Everything's there. The offshore accounts, the previous marriages, the suspicious deaths, and the messages between Ryan and Jessica planning how to manipulate you. Ryan lunged for the phone, but Mark caught his arm. Don't, my husband said quietly. It's time for truth. Alex scrolled through the evidence, his hands shaking. Ryan, is this true? Uncle Alex, I can explain. He was trying to protect your legacy. Jessica interrupted smoothly. Unlike some people who only want to tear this family apart. By sleeping with my nephew? The words hung in the air like poison. Jessica's mask cracked. That's not, we never... The hotel receipts suggest otherwise, Tyler said, his voice cold. Lucas stood up so suddenly his chair toppled backward. You promised me a future. You said if I helped you, you'd make sure I got into Westbrook Academy. Lucas, quiet, Ryan snapped, but the damage was done. All this time, Alex whispered, while I was planning our future, planning to give you everything, I did it for us. Jessica reached for him, but he recoiled. Everything I did was to secure our position, our legacy. By poisoning me, like the others? She froze. What others? The toxicology reports, I said quietly. From husband number 2. Thallium poisoning is pretty distinctive. Jessica's composure shattered. She grabbed her wine glass and hurled it at me, but Tyler was faster, pulling me aside. The glass shattered against the wall, leaving a blood-red stain. You've ruined everything, she screamed, advancing toward me. I had it all planned perfectly. Mom, stop her, Lucas yelled, but Ryan was already moving, putting himself between Jessica and me. Don't, he said, his voice breaking. It's over. The look she gave him could have frozen hell. You ungrateful little... Alex's coughing fit interrupted her tirade. He doubled over, gasping for breath, blood speckling his napkin. Call an ambulance, Mark shouted, rushing to Alex's side. Jessica used the chaos to bolt for the door, but I was ready. As she passed, I grabbed her arm, spinning her around. You're not going anywhere. Her laugh was hollow. You think you've won. Look at your family, Maya. Look what your precious truth has done. Ryan's future is ruined. Lucas's dreams are shattered. And Alex? She glanced at my brother's convulsing form. Well, the damage is already done. I made sure of that this morning. She twisted free and ran, leaving me torn between pursuing her and helping Alex. The sound of sirens grew closer as I watched my family fracture before my eyes. Ryan knelt beside his uncle, tears streaming down his face. Lucas huddled in a corner while Tyler called the police. Mark caught my eye across the chaos, and I saw my own horror reflected there. We'd exposed the truth, but at what cost? And somewhere out there, Jessica was escaping with all our secrets, all our weaknesses, and nothing left to lose. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before me as I followed the trail of blood drops, tiny crimson breadcrumbs leading to my brother's room. Alex had collapsed again during his attempted escape, proving Jessica's morning dosage had been particularly lethal. "He's asking for you," the nurse said, but her expression suggested I shouldn't expect much time. Inside, machines beeped in irregular rhythm. Tyler sat in the corner, laptop open, frantically tracking Jessica's financial movements. Mark stood guard at the door while Ryan paced like a caged animal. "Where's Lucas?" I asked. "Gone," Ryan spat, following Jessica's breadcrumbs about some private school connection. He won't answer his phone. Alex's hand trembled as he reached for me. "The safe," he whispered, "behind the Kandinsky in my study. Everything you need." His monitors screamed. Medical staff flooded the room, pushing us out. Through the chaos, I caught Ryan slipping something into his pocket, a piece of paper from Alex's bedside table. "What did you take?" He met my gaze with Jessica's same cold calculation. "Insurance." "Against what?" "Against you destroying everything Uncle Alex built." He backed away. "You think you're protecting this family? You're tearing it apart." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. The text contained only an address and 4 words. "Lucas says hello, sister dear." Tyler looked up from his laptop. "Mom, Jessica just emptied all of Alex's accounts. Every penny gone." The doctor emerged, his face grave. "We've stabilized him, but the toxicology report shows massive organ failure. Whatever he was given will kill him," I finished. "That's the point." My phone buzzed again. A photo this time. Lucas sitting in what looked like a private school office. Jessica's manicured hand visible on his shoulder. "She's at Westbrook Academy," Tyler said, already pulling up the location. "But Mom, there's something else. The school's financial director, he was married to Jessica's first victim." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. She's not running. This was her plan all along. Get Alex's money, take Lucas, destroy what's left of our family. "Ryan!" Mark's shout made us turn. Our eldest son was sprinting down the corridor, Alex's paper clutched in his hand. "Let him go," I said, watching him disappear. "He's made his choice." "What now?" Tyler asked. "Now?" I pulled out my car keys. "Now we finish this. Mark, stay with Alex. Tyler, I need everything you can find on Westbrook Academy and Jessica's connection to it. And call the police. Tell them where to find her." "Mom," Tyler's voice cracked slightly. "What if we're too late? What if Lucas—" "Don't." The word came out sharper than intended. Your brother's not the only one she's trying to destroy. This is about legacy, about family. She's taken my brother, corrupted Ryan, and now she's using Lucas to complete her revenge. Revenge for what? For being the family she could never have. The realization hit me as I said it. Every husband, every manipulation, she's been trying to create the perfect family, then destroying it when it proves imperfect. My phone buzzed one final time. A video. Lucas staring into the camera, tears streaming down his face. "Mom, I'm sorry. She says if you don't bring Alex's new will to Westbrook within the hour, she'll make sure Ryan takes the fall for everything. The affairs, the poison, all of it. She has proof." The screen went black. Tyler's fingers flew across his keyboard. "Mom, the police are on their way, but they won't make it in time." I checked my watch. "How long can you keep Alex stable?" Mark's face darkened. "You can't be serious. Jessica wants to destroy our family? Fine, let's give her what she wants." I pulled out my own copy of Alex's will, the one she didn't know about. But this time, we play by my rules. "Maya." Mark grabbed my arm. "This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about survival." No, I said, shaking him off. This is about justice. For Alex, for her other husbands, for our sons. I headed for the door. Sometimes the only way to protect your family is to be willing to lose them. Behind me, the monitors tracking Alex's heartbeat grew fainter, like a countdown to what was coming. I had less than an hour to save one son, stop another from destroying himself, and prevent a murderer from completing her masterpiece of destruction. And somewhere in the gathering darkness, Jessica waited, thinking she'd finally won. She had no idea what a mother protecting her children was capable of. It was time to show her. Westbrook Academy's empty hallways echoed with my footsteps as I approached the headmaster's office. Through the frosted glass, I could make out 3 silhouettes: Jessica, Lucas, and Ryan. Of course, Ryan would be here. He'd chosen his side. Right on time, Jessica called out as I entered. She sat behind the headmaster's desk like she belonged there, Lucas rigid beside her, Ryan leaning against the window with Alex's papers clutched in his hand. "Where's the real headmaster?" I asked, though I already knew. "Indisposed. Food poisoning, such a shame." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "The will?" I placed a manila envelope on the desk. "First, let Lucas go." "Mom," Lucas's voice cracked. "I'm sorry, I thought—" "Quiet," Jessica snapped. "Ryan, verify the documents." As Ryan reached for the envelope, I noticed something odd about his stance. The slight tremor in his hands, the way he wouldn't meet my eyes. He was scared. "It's fake," he said after scanning the papers. "This isn't Uncle Alex's signature." Jessica's facade cracked slightly. "Where's the real will?" "With the police." Tyler's voice came from my phone in my pocket on speaker. "Along with the evidence from your previous husband's deaths. They're on their way." "You're bluffing." But Jessica's hand slipped into her desk drawer. "The headmaster didn't have food poisoning, did he?" I took a step forward. "He recognized you from your first husband's case. That's why you needed him gone." "Mom," Ryan warned, but I kept going. 3 husbands, 3 schools, 3 destroyed families. Always targeting men with sons, always playing the perfect stepmother, until they discovered the truth. Jessica pulled out a syringe, grabbing Lucas. "Stay back." "That's thallium in there, isn't it? Same thing you gave Alex this morning. Ryan's been helping you administer it for weeks, hasn't he?" Lucas struggled, but Jessica held firm. Ryan moved toward them, his face unreadable. "You don't understand." Jessica's voice shook. "I gave them everything. Every husband, every family. I tried to be perfect, to create something lasting, but they always chose their blood relatives over me. Always. So you killed them? I set them free, and I gave their sons better opportunities, better futures. By manipulating them, by destroying their families, by saving them from mothers like you." She pressed the syringe against Lucas's neck. "So protective, so righteous. But you're suffocating them. Ryan understands. Don't you, Ryan?" But Ryan wasn't looking at Jessica anymore. He was looking at his phone, at the text I knew Tyler had just sent him. Proof that Jessica had already transferred Alex's money to an account in her name alone, leaving Ryan with nothing. "You promised," he whispered. "You said we'd build something together, that I'd inherit." "Oh, grow up," Jessica spat. "You were just like the others, so desperate for approval, so easy to mold." The syringe trembled against Lucas's skin. One push, and my youngest would suffer the same slow death as Alex. "Mom," Lucas whimpered, and in that moment I saw my opening. "Jessica," I said softly, "there's something you should know about the will." She hesitated. "What?" "Alex changed it last week, left everything to you, no conditions. It's in his safe at home." "You're lying." "Check your phone. Tyler just sent you the proof." As she reached for her phone with her free hand, Ryan moved. In one fluid motion, he grabbed the syringe and pulled Lucas away. Jessica lunged forward, but I was ready. The punch connected with her jaw, sending her sprawling across the desk. "That's for my brother," I said as she struggled to rise. "And this," I grabbed her hair, slamming her head against the wood, "is for my sons." Sirens wailed in the distance. Ryan held Lucas as he sobbed, the syringe safely out of reach. "Mom," Ryan's voice broke. "I didn't know. I thought—" "I know." I kept Jessica pinned as footsteps thundered down the hallway. "We'll talk about it later." As the police burst in, Jessica started laughing. You think this is over? Your precious family is already destroyed. Look at them. The trust broken, the bonds shattered. I've already won. I leaned close as they handcuffed her. No, Jessica. You just taught my sons what real family looks like. It's not perfect. It's not even always good. But we protect our own, even from themselves. The police led her away, her laughter echoing through the halls like a dying curse. My sons stood together, broken but alive, and I realized that sometimes victory looks a lot like survival. The key felt heavy in my hand as I unlocked Alex's front door. His house still smelled like him, coffee and expensive cologne, but the silence was deafening. The doctors had given him days, maybe hours. Jessica's final dose had done its work. Ryan stood in the doorway of the study, watching me gather Alex's papers. The police want my statement tomorrow. Tell them the truth. I pulled open the safe behind the Kandinsky. All of it. Even about helping her poison him? My hands stilled on the documents. Especially that. Lucas appeared in the doorway, his face tight. They found more victims. 7 husbands, not 3. Different names, different cities. 8, Tyler corrected, joining us with his laptop. Just found another one from 2015. She was getting better at hiding them. The safe's contents spread across Alex's desk like a roadmap of destruction. Bank statements, property deeds, and a letter addressed to me in my brother's shaking handwriting. I knew, I read aloud, about Jessica, about Ryan, about everything. But I thought I could protect them both. Forgive me, little sister. Some legacies aren't worth preserving. Ryan made a choked sound and left the room. Lucas followed, but Tyler lingered. The money's gone, he said quietly. She transferred everything before we caught her. Even with the evidence, it'll take years to recover. I closed the safe. We don't need it. But Uncle Alex wanted family. Real family. Not whatever twisted version Jessica sold him. The front door opened, and Mark's footsteps echoed through the house. Maya? The hospital called. I nodded, unable to speak. We all knew what that meant. There's something else, Mark continued. They found this in Jessica's cell. He held out a crumpled note. The handwriting was elegant, controlled. You think you've won, sister dear? Look closer at your precious family. Ryan wasn't the only one I taught my tricks to. Some poisons take years to surface. Some betrayals never heal. Sweet dreams. Lucas appeared behind me, reading over my shoulder. His face went pale. She's lying, he whispered. I wouldn't. But I saw the guilt in his eyes, remembered the strange illnesses that plagued his brothers over the past year. Small doses, experimental ones. Jessica's teaching methods were thorough. Mom? Tyler's voice cracked. I burned the note in Alex's fancy fireplace, watching Jessica's final attempt at destruction turn to ash. We start over, I said. All of us. No more secrets, no more poison, metaphorical or otherwise. How? Ryan had returned, hovering in the doorway like a ghost. After everything I did, we rebuild, one truth at a time. I turned to Lucas, starting with what Jessica taught you. He broke down then, confessing everything, the small doses, the experiments, the way she made it seem like a game. Tyler held his younger brother while he sobbed, his own tears falling silently. Mark touched my shoulder. Alex is asking for all of us. The drive to the hospital was silent. In the ICU, Alex barely had strength to smile, but his eyes were clear. Did you find it? He whispered. In the safe? I showed him Jessica's note. She tried one last time. Always had to have the last word. His laugh turned into a cough. Ryan? Our eldest son stepped forward, tears streaming. I'm sorry, Uncle Alex. You thought you could save everyone, just like your mother. Alex's hand found mine. The real legacy isn't in the safe. It's in them, even the broken parts. His monitors began to slow. Promise me, he managed. No more revenge, only healing. I looked at my sons, Ryan's guilt, Tyler's quiet strength, Lucas's desperate need for redemption. The poisons in our family ran deeper than Jessica's chemicals, but maybe that's what made us stronger. We knew our darkness, could face it together. I promise, I whispered, but Alex was already gone. Later, standing in his empty study, I found one last note in the safe, written years ago. Family is the hardest poison to swallow, and the only antidote that matters. I left it there, locked away with the rest of our secrets. Some legacies are meant to be buried, while others, the ones written in blood and tears and forgiveness, those are the ones worth preserving, even if they leave scars, especially if they leave scars.
Ah. It's time for the bride and groom to enter. Hey, why are you here? Shouldn't guests be seated by now? Did you arrange for there to be no seat for me? There's no seat for outsiders, so leave. As usual, such a selfish, spoiled, childish woman. Anger is rising, but it's a celebration. So I need to stay calm. It's okay, by the time the reception is over, she will regret it. I turned my back on my sister-in-law without saying a word. I left the wedding venue without turning back, hearing her loud laughter. My name is Mary, and I'm 37. I'm a housewife living with my husband. I work from home, which allows me to work whenever I like, making it easy to balance with household chores. My husband is kind, serious, and calm. I've never seen him angry. My husband has a younger sister named Julia. She was a college student until last year. She's cute, delicate, and sensitive to trends, just like today's young women. Having lost their parents early, my husband has been like a parent to her since she was young. The two siblings have supported each other throughout their lives. Naturally, as his wife, the sister-in-law sees me as a rival, feeling as if her only family has been taken away. I can understand her feelings. Thinking back, ever since we first met 2 years ago, she has glared at me, ignored me, and made snide remarks, clear acts of malice. From my perspective, as a woman in her 40s, her obvious jealousy seems almost cute. Brother is too good for you, or dress better, your embarrassing brother. She would say, and I'd just respond casually, okay, sorry about that, and brush it off. At least until recently. Hello, is brother here? She would suddenly come to visit like this. This month alone, she's come over 10 times. I was welcoming at first since we were newly married, but it's become too frequent and annoying. She's selfish, not caring about our circumstances. I understand she wants to see her brother, but she's an adult and should call before coming. It's frustrating. When I open the door, oh, it's you, Mary. Where's brother? He just went to the convenience store. Then I'll wait. She enters without permission, takes a drink from the fridge, and sits on the sofa. It's always like this, but today, with my husband not home, it feels a bit more irritating. From her perspective, it might be brother's house, but it's also my house. I hardened my heart and told her, Julia, I've always thought this, but you really should stop your thoughtless behavior. Huh? What are you suddenly talking about? It's not just about you, your actions could embarrass others too. Be careful. I tried to say it in as kind a tone as possible, but it seems to have upset her. Taking advantage of brother not being here, are you bullying me? That's not what I mean, Julia. I think it will cause you trouble later. I won't forgive you. I'm going to tell brother. I don't mind. What a hassle. It's not like a children's quarrel to tattle. After all, I won't listen to a shut-in freeloader like you. I was stunned. Usually, I don't care much about what she says. But calling me a freeloader is something I cannot ignore. I'm working from home, not a shut-in or a freeloader. Yeah, let's just say that. If you're not a freeloader, then maybe just a burden? In front of her brother, she never shows this disrespectful attitude, which makes me angry. Just then, my husband returned. I'm home. Hearing his voice, the sister-in-law suddenly changed her demeanor. Brother, welcome back. Julia, you were here again? Yes. I was nearby and came to see brother. She snuggles up to him, not really wanting to be affectionate with her real brother, but rather to compete with me. Listen. Mary was terrible to me just now. She begins to talk excitedly, while I decide to remain silent. She said I have no common sense and called me shameless, so horrible. Mary said that? Yes. I was so scared I almost cried, sniffle. My husband looked at me with a troubled face, clearly realizing the story was exaggerated. He wants to be a kind brother for her, and hopes his wife and sister get along well, but being caught in the middle is tough. So, brother, scold Mary, will you? The puzzled look on my husband's face. I sighed. This is why I dread visits from my sister-in-law. It's exhausting to deal with her. My husband said. Mary wouldn't say that without a reason. Did you do something, Julia? Her eyes widened in shock, not expecting to be accused. What? I'm the bad one? That's not what I meant. I can't believe it, brother. You've changed since getting married. It's all her fault. Stop it, the weird one is you. Brother? It's okay, you can learn common sense. It's good to take adults around you as examples. As my husband said this and nodded at me, I did the same. She didn't like that, got angry, and stormed out with loud footsteps. I refuse. I don't care anymore. My husband shrugged his shoulders and said, Sorry for my selfish sister. It's hard to say, that's okay, or no problem, and I struggled to respond. She'll probably come back as if nothing happened, and it'll be fine. I wish she would find someone nice, so she wouldn't cling to me so much. My husband muttered this with a sigh. I agreed and nodded deeply. A month has passed since then. Really, there have been no visits from my sister-in-law. And we've been living peacefully. I thought she would quickly get over it and come over as usual, but maybe she's still angry? I was also immature. I'm a bit concerned. But there was no need to worry. She suddenly visited as usual, wearing flashy clothes and new accessories that I've never seen before. And she was in a very good mood. I'm getting married. The wedding date is set. We were both surprised by the sudden good news. Isn't that too sudden? Well, I'm pregnant. What? Who's the partner? He's a company president, very wealthy. He fell in love with me at first sight and wants to marry me quickly. He buys me anything and listens to everything I say. Aren't you jealous? My boastful sister-in-law. Indeed, that is enviable. That's great, really great. My husband is genuinely happy. He seems to be teary-eyed. It's natural since he was a parent figure to her. I'm happy, of course. Congratulations, Julia. However, with a malicious smile, she said, There are too many guests at the wedding, and they won't fit in the venue. You know, because he's a president. Wow, that's amazing. I feel bad for you, Mary, but there's only a seat for brother. Sorry. My mouth fell open. It's unimaginable, beyond common sense or manners. It's harassment. She smirked at me and said, Brother, here, the invitation. The ceremony is in a month. Without accepting it, my husband shook his head. I'm sorry, but I have a business trip that day. What? I can't go, so please mark me as absent. He said it clearly, without hesitation. Don't joke. It's my only sister's wedding. Get someone else to replace your business trip. Julia. My husband calmly called his sister's name and advised her. If there are too many of her partner's guests to invite Mary, then I don't need to force myself to go. Let's have dinner together some other time. Really, congratulations on your marriage. Julia trembled with rage, unable to hide her anger. Are you serious? Of course. No, just come alone, brother. That's not possible. At that moment, she tore up the invitation. I thought I'd let just you come, but now. The worst. Once again, my sister-in-law stomped away with deliberately loud footsteps. She's just too childish. It's as if she's saying, if you don't like it, I'll exclude you from the group. Hey, if it weren't for the business trip, would you have attended? When I asked my husband, he thought for a moment and then shook his head. Things can't always go as you want. That's true. A month later, I was alone at the wedding venue. Why? Because I was invited to a certain wedding. The banquet hall, lavishly decorated, was filled with tables right up to the walls. I pushed through the overflowing crowd of guests looking for my seat, but couldn't find it. Excuse me, I can't find my seat. When I asked the venue staff, they helped me, but with a puzzled look. They said, this seat is already taken. I thanked them and stepped outside the hall. I work from home normally, so I'm not good with crowds. I wanted to sit down quickly. The bride and groom were about to enter. What should I do? Then, a familiar woman in a pure white dress walked towards me. My sister-in-law. How dare you show up? She said with a demonic expression, and I replied. Because I was invited. Yes, this is my sister-in-law's wedding. But, the person who invited me was the groom. He has been a friend for a long time, and we still keep in touch. When I saw the seating chart and your name under husband's friends, I thought it couldn't be you. Suddenly, I became curious about the tight design of her dress. Maybe it was nosy, but I asked, by the way, are you feeling okay? Don't overdo it. What do you mean? You're pregnant, right? She smiled a bit and said, it's okay, that was a lie to get married. What? He's a president, pays well, and is somewhat handsome. I couldn't let him get away, it's inevitable. I was speechless, shocked. It's all settled now. Unbelievable. Lies and jokes can't cover it. Fraud. How can she tell such a consequential lie so easily? Is there something loose in her head? If only Mary wasn't even a friend, it would have been perfect. Oh, the worst. It's not my fault. The groom has been my friend since before I met my sister-in-law. From our student days. He was always working too hard, bearing the pressure as the second generation of his company. I remember often giving him advice. His company only recently got on track. Yet, this woman pays well, somewhat handsome, sounding so haughty. Honestly, it was surprising that he chose my sister-in-law, but if he's happy, that's fine. And I wanted to celebrate in my own way. That's why I attended the wedding, though I wasn't supposed to be invited. Julia, could you check where my seat is? She must have heard, but she ignored me. Ah. It's time for the entrance. Hey, why are you here? Guests should quickly take their seats. Her snickering attitude, she must know something. My seat is taken, someone else is sitting there. Could it be? Ah. Someone is sitting there? Then who are you? You're not a friend of my husband's. There's no seat for outsiders, so leave. As usual, she acts selfishly, spoiled, and mean-spirited in a childish way. I wanted to see the groom in all his glory and celebrate with him. But it seems that won't happen. I should head back. I'll apologize to the groom who invited me later. There's something bothering me. But if there's no seat for me, there's nothing I can do. I feel anger bubbling up as I watch my sister-in-law laughing carelessly in front of me. But it's a celebration, so I need to stay calm. It's okay, by the time the reception is over. She will regret it. I turned my back on my sister-in-law without saying a word. I left the wedding venue without looking back, listening to her loud laughter. When I got home, I received a call from the groom who had invited me. Right away, he apologized. I'm really sorry. I didn't realize you weren't there. I apologized too, saying, sorry for leaving. But he didn't hear me because my sister-in-law snatched the phone away. Hey. What are you going to do about this? What? What are you talking about? It's your fault. She ranted without explanation. What is she talking about? I would like to say. But I actually have a pretty good idea. Really, I'm so immature. The person sitting in my seat at the reception was a stand-in attendee arranged by my sister-in-law. She had deliberately prepared a woman with a similar build. Told her, just sit quietly, that's all, and had her sit there. During the reception, various people related to the groom kept coming to greet that seat. Why does everyone come to my seat instead of the day's main character? The stand-in woman wouldn't know. Of course. But since she was told to stay quiet, she just kept silently receiving business cards handed to her. Even if someone asked, I'm a fan, could you say just one word, please? She could only stay silent. The woman confirmed just once. Is it really okay just to sit here? She became anxious because she was repeatedly told, we appreciate your help. And please help us again, but she couldn't lift her head. Wouldn't it be bad if it was found out she was a stand-in? However, the bride instructed her to continue. Of course, it's too late to back out now. Eventually, the reception hall darkened, and a short movie started playing. The content was introduced by the groom, a company president. This video was made by a friend as a celebration gift. I believe everyone gathered here has received help from this person. A creator who plans community events and corporate collaborations, contributing to local growth. A single person who draws, produces videos, and does narration, Mary. She even has many fans for her sweet voice. The bride sweated bullets. The shut-in or loser she thought was a creator? Sweet voice? What does that mean? When my company was struggling, Mary created our website. And now we get hundreds of inquiries from it. Many of you are from similar companies, right? Applause started in the venue. Terrified, the stand-in woman tried to escape while it was dark. Thank you for watching this wonderful movie. Mary, thank you for supporting our community. The spotlight hit the woman, revealing she was not the real person. Who is that? The venue erupted in chaos. The stand-in woman screamed. I can't do this anymore. You said you'd just feed me delicious food. Saying that, she shoved the business cards at the bride. I don't know anything about this, and ran away. The groom confronted his bride. Where is my friend Mary? I don't know. Who is that woman? I don't know. You don't know? But you were talking about it. It's not my fault. What are you going to do about this? I thought even my sister-in-law would regret it by now. But if Mary had just told me properly, I wouldn't have been this mean. Liar. That was her attitude. I haven't lied about anything. Can't she even apologize now? Does she truly think she's not at fault? I said, please put the groom on the phone. Then, will you persuade him? About what? He's thinking of calling off the marriage. All that's left is to submit the marriage registration. Really? The guests left early because of the awful atmosphere. Why should I have to defend her? I stayed silent and the phone was handed over to the groom. Mary, I'm sorry, it was a movie you made specially for us. It was really good, thank you. No, I'm really sorry about my sister-in-law. No, I'd like to say it's my wife's fault, but... He said with a sigh. I fell in love with her at first sight because she was young, cute, and innocent. Seeing the true nature of my sister-in-law, which isn't just innocence but something dangerously immature, it's natural for him to have second thoughts. Even if she had apologized honestly, her defiant attitude is unacceptable. I think it's the worst thing to say as a man, or even as a person. But I find myself wishing there wasn't a baby in her belly. Huh? That lie was still ongoing? I truly sympathize with him, swayed by her fraudulent behavior. I don't think it's my place to say anything about their relationship, but he's an important friend. I want him to be happy. I decided to let something slip. She's not pregnant. What do you mean? There was never a baby from the start. Maybe you should verify that before deciding anything? I said that and hung up the phone. If he's only getting married out of a sense of duty, I wouldn't recommend continuing with her. They should really talk honestly. Honestly, I want to tell him to run away from such a woman right now. I'm really not being very adult about this. Still, it's a shame I couldn't watch the movie I made for a friend at the reception. Most of my work is published online, and I rarely get to see people's reactions in person. I reached out individually to friends and acquaintances who were invited to the wedding to apologize. Everyone gave me kind words and shared their thoughts on the movie. I was really pleased. There was even a new job order. Despite the mess, thanks to the groom, it turned into good publicity. Honestly, I hate being spotlighted in such a crowded place, as I usually don't show my face. And who started saying my narration was in a sweet voice? I admit I put on a bit of an act to be more audible. They mean it as a compliment, but it's embarrassing, and I wish they'd stop. When my husband returned from his business trip, he was furious at his sister for causing a scandal based on a lie. That almost led to a broken engagement. At the same time, he was worried. Given his position, that's understandable. He's depressed, wondering if there's something wrong with how he raised her, having been like a parent to her since they lost their parents, and listened to her kindly. But it's all brother's fault. You married such a woman. If you think it's bad, you should get a divorce too. Typical of her. Pure, unadulterated selfishness. She's an adult and a member of society. Even if she is his sister. Even if he's her brother, he's not responsible for absorbing that. My husband finally lost his temper. He cut off all means of contact and even posted a Sister not welcome sign at the front door. No calls are forwarded at his company. Worse than a stranger. Rejection from someone who has always been gentle is terrifying. When a usually calm person gets angry, it's truly frightening. His methods are merciless. At last, my sister-in-law quieted down. She probably never thought she'd be completely abandoned like this. I'm the only one she can still contact. Maybe one day she'll reflect and call to apologize? As long as she keeps blaming everyone else, who knows when that will be. Now, I'm swamped with work. Thankfully, I'm constantly getting new job requests through referrals and word of mouth. A blessing in disguise, really. That's all for now.